Okay, this is now Tarot Lesson 25, and I don't know what I'm doing because I want to deal with the question of intuitive readings and intuition, and when or to what extent do you trust your intuition when it comes to reading a card. So I've had a couple of comments. Let me move the mic. Okay, I've had a couple of comments, and if you want to discuss intuitive readings, send me an email and tell me how it works, or what intuitive meaning you came up with, or what intuitive connection you came up with, and how and why. Because I don't really know what people mean by intuition. I used to know a woman in Holland years ago, and she would tell me that she was walking down the street and she would see people with a black aura around them, and she knew they were going to die soon. And I said, how do you know? And she said, it's my intuition tells me. Because she thought she saw, or maybe she did see auras, I don't know. But that's I have trouble with that, where you assume that what you think is the 100% true, and it's going to happen, and you can see the future. And it's a bit, some people talk about how in a lot of ways you don't really even need tarot cards to do a tarot reading, so it's like, am I going to tell me about my future husband? Okay, your future husband is going to be a bit older than you and well off, and he's got a good job, and he's the head of a company, the head of a department, and he's quite strict and stern, and he likes children, and he is busy at work all the time, but he will be able to give you time because he'd like to spend time at home with you and the children that you're going to have. Maybe that was right. I don't know, because I'm looking at the back of the card and I don't have any reason or justification for saying anything like that. And that I personally have trouble with that kind of reading, where the reader just talks, and what they say may be true, but half the time it's probably not going to be true. But it's different, that kind of intuition, or what they call intuitive reading, whereas I'm sort of afraid to turn this card. Oh, it's Six of Cups reversed, so you're not getting married after all, and you're not going to meet anybody. So if it had been a King of Swords, I would have been wondering. But so it's different to say, okay, yes, you're going to get married, looking at the back of the card, or looking at nothing and looking at a picture where you've got two people. So yes, it's likely that there's going to be somebody in your future. And then if that picture reminds you of, I'm thinking of that Tom Cruise movie with Renee Zellweger. You know the one I mean, where about he played the baseball or the sports agent. Can't remember what it was called, but there's one bit where Tom goes back to meet his ex-wife, or his separated wife, and she says quite famously, "You had me at hello." Because he goes into the room, and there are women talking about how awful men are, and he says, hello, I want to talk to my wife, blah, 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 blah. And then Renee says, you had me at hello. Maybe that is what comes to mind when you look at that picture. And then you talk about how there'll be an instant attraction, or there will be a recognition that this person is right, or you find that you're on the same page, that you maybe finish each other's sentences, that kind of thing. And that's because we're looking at the picture. So I think if you look at the back of the card and talk, I think that's what passes for intuition. And I don't know if you can trust that to the same extent that you can trust, okay, it's a Six of Cups and blah, blah, blah. So I'm, by all means, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I would have more confidence if you looked at the picture and made connections. Because if you're looking at the back of the card, then your connections can be too personal and too much your own experience, you talking about you and not really talking about the questioner. Whereas if you've got a picture to look at, then somehow it's about the questioner. And this whole idea of intuition, I've got a piece of paper here. So in a horoscope, there are 12 houses, right? This is the ascendant here, right? First house, if I can turn the paper. So I have to turn it this way to write 1, 5, and 9. These are the houses of life. The first, the fifth, and the ninth are houses of life. And if you have planets in the first, the fifth, and the ninth, you're interested in living. Just living, being alive, and enjoying what you enjoy. The second, the sixth, and the 10th are houses of wealth. And so if you've got planets in the second, the sixth, and the 10th, you're interested in wealth, making money, spending money, buying stuff, selling stuff. The third, the sixth, the seventh, and the 11th are houses of association, right? So brothers and sisters, partnerships and friends. So if you have planets in these three houses, then you're interested in people and having relationships with other people. So that what's left is the fourth. Oh, sorry, that's the fifth there. The fourth, the 8th, and the 12th. The 4th, the 8th, and the 12th. These are houses of psychism. So if you have planets in these houses, it means you have an interest in psychism. It doesn't mean you've got ability. That you can have an interest in psychism and want to read cards or whatever it happens to be, or like astral projection and things like that. But it doesn't mean you've got any ability. Ability comes from planetary positions and relationships between planets, not just the fact that you've got an interest. And people confuse an interest in astrology with ability to figure out what a chart means, and it's not the same. So this woman in Holland from years ago, she had an interest in psychism. I don't know how much ability she had. And that's my problem with intuitive readings. By all means, do what you want. But I think if we take our starting point from the picture and talk about what sense it makes to us, or how we would interpret it, or it reminds us of something that happened to us, and then our story and our experiences can be valuable for the questioner because they're going through maybe the same kind of thing, or they're going to go through some kind of related activity, and so they're going to learn something or get something out of our experience, and in that way an intuitive reading works, I think. But it's when you just grab stuff out the air. I personally don't find that very useful or convincing or much of a foundation to build on. But today I wanted to do a little bit about practice. So I think what a good exercise is, you come up with a question, because we need a context. We need to know what area of life we're talking about, or what concern the questioner has, or what we want the answer to relate to. And so we come up with a question, and rather than what does my future hold, how about a question like, what went wrong with that last relationship? So you think, the question is, what went wrong with the last relationship? And you take the top card and you turn it over. What went wrong? What have we got? The Four of Swords reversed. So you think about what went wrong. Maybe that when we notice this nice thing up in the corner. So it's a bit like the relationship was too strict. It's a sword, hardship. It was too strict and too quiet and not very interesting and not very exciting. And there could have been, because if you look at that little bit in the corner there, there's a blessing going on, and there's connection between people and a recognition of the value of the other individual. But it's upside down. So it's a bit like he or she didn't appreciate you properly. And so you ended up feeling dead, or feeling ignored, or feeling that no matter what you did, it was never good enough. So you're thinking about what you might say. And it means that if this card comes up to do with a question about a failed relationship, you've already got an idea of what you might talk about, so that instead of turning it and then getting stuck or not being able to think of anything to say, you've already thought of something, so you can start with that idea. So why did the relationship go wrong? And you turn this card and you say, okay, I happen to have picked this particular card not so long ago when I was practicing, and I thought to myself, and then you just talk and you use the words that you remember. And you don't need to remember word for word what you thought last time. You just talk around the idea you have about a harsh, loveless maybe relationship, that you wanted love, you wanted connection, but it was denied. Which is not the same as I said a couple of minutes ago, but it's the same kind of thing. So you would do that, and then maybe we put that in the bottom and say, tell me why the relationship failed, and you take the next card. Why did it fail? The King of Pentacles. So if it's a man, then okay. It depends on who was asking the question. But coins is money. You disagreed about what you were going to spend your money on. So you wanted to buy a big screen television, and he or she wanted to buy, new plates and new crockery. And you didn't see the point. You've got plates. We don't have a big screen TV. Come on, get with the program, as they say. So there are or else this King of Pentacles might be that an older man interfered in the relationship. So it could be your father or the other person's father had too much of an influence or had too much impact. They were maybe always coming round to visit, and you were fed up with him, but the partner was accommodating. And so you fell out because you didn't like this old fellow coming round all the time. That's a possibility. Again, it depends on when you know if it's a man or a woman asking, and maybe you know a little bit about the relationship itself. They've told you that. Or maybe you say, was there an older person who came by too often? And they say yes or no and talk about it. And then you've got more to say about the card. But if they say no, there wasn't, but I wish there had been, that is telling you something as well about the King of Pentacles. Because that can be the meaning, that it's not that the old fellow came round too often. It's that the old person representing stability or representing wisdom or knowledge didn't have enough input into the relationship. Because some people think they know everything, but they don't really, and they need they're better off with somebody to keep them straight or to point out a different point of view. And that can have been what was missing in the relationship. And that's when your intuition will come in, because let's say you've got the old man coming around too often, or the older person not coming around enough. And so what went wrong in the relationship? You turn it over. Whatever comes to your mind, because you've thought, okay, they come too often or they don't come often enough. Whatever comes to mind, you're going to talk about that, and that's going to be the right answer. You're going to know automatically and intuitively whether there was an older person that was interfering in the relationship, or whether it needed somebody older and experienced to give the couple help. And maybe that goes on the bottom when we pick a third one. What have we got? The Sun. Why did it go wrong with the Sun card? That is in itself is interesting, because you would think it didn't go wrong. And so what do? We have to make sense of this rather than assume it's good or bad. So what went wrong in the past? Why did it go wrong? Because the Sun, because one of you was too overwhelming and too domineering, or maybe because you maybe you say the relationship had run its course. The Sun is completion and success or fulfillment, right? So it's as if you got from the relationship everything you could get from it, and if you had stayed in the relationship, it would have gradually petered out. So, because that happens with some relationships, you meet somebody and you're with them for a certain amount of time, but when you've got all you can get out of it, you have to move on, assuming that it's not the person, your soulmate or whatever, that you're going to live with forever. But with the Sun, that's one possible interpretation of the card. Why did it go? Why did it end? Because you had done it all. Or maybe because one person was domineering, like the Sun. Remember, too much sun can burn. And so maybe the other person wanted their own way all the time. Or you wanted your own way all the time. And it couldn't work. So the judgment. That, I think, is it for the moment. So today is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'll be back on Sunday. So if you have comments about intuitive readings or intuition, leave it in a comment or send me an email and we'll maybe take it from there. Otherwise, I'll be back on Sunday with something. Thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day. Okay, bye-bye.